Hello and welcome to the Next in Line podcast, where we are helping to prepare you for whatever is next in line. As always, I'm your host, Chance Pitts, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into this episode. Guys and gals, first things first, if you receive value from this episode or any other episode of the Next in Line podcast, I'd ask that you share the show with like-minded individuals who could receive that same kind of value. That's the number one way for us to grow and to move this thing in a positive direction. Additionally, guys, if you could leave us a rating or review, like, subscribe, comment on whatever platform you find yourself listening on. That's going to also help us move this thing in a positive direction, because we're going to pop up in the search bar a little bit earlier as people look for personal development type podcasts. And guys, overall, whenever we're able to reach more people, we're able to help more people. And that's our goal here. Nothing more, nothing less. Now, you can also keep up with all the daily stuff we have going on. Keep up with all the crazy things we get into, like on this Colorado trip coming up, by following us on social media. That's at Next in Line Development on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're active there. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, concerns, and you want to shoot us a DM, that's the best place to do it as well, to reach us and get a response in a pretty fast manner. Now, guys, I mentioned the Colorado trip. If you didn't listen to the podcast last week with my dad, we are going up to Kremling and Leadville, Colorado to get away for a few days. We're going to do some trail running, maybe hit the hot springs, do some hiking, maybe even climb Mount Elbert while we're up there. But the main thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the reset button, and we're going to go decompress and relax just a little bit before we got to sprint back in for Thanksgiving and try to make it back on Thursday on time. Now, guys, I've also been doing some working out and some focus on my own health as well. I'm a strong proponent of making sure that you're sticking with the program and following people who give valuable and accurate information. One of those guys is Nick Bear for me. He does a lot of running, a lot of ultra-marathon running and marathon running, but also a ton of strength training. And I've had a heavy emphasis on strength training here recently following his hybrid build program, which has me doing about 7 days of lifting, along with filling in with 20 to 25 miles of running still. So I'm maintaining that endurance side, but also building some strength, seeing some awesome traction there, and some positive momentum for me there. So I'm super excited about that. If y'all have any questions about what that is or where I'm getting those resources from, like I said, shoot me a DM. I'll be happy to help out. Now, guys, now that we have everything out of the way in forms of updates and news and housekeeping and all that fun stuff, I'd really like to get into the topic for today. And that is really focusing on what we bring into our lives. But guys, I'm going to present it like this. There's a few old sayings that I'm sure all of us have heard time and time again, and there's a million different versions of this, but I'll just throw a few out here for y'all. What goes around comes around. You get out what you put in. You get what you pay for. Now, guys, like I said, we can think of a million to go along with that have the same meaning, but it's important that we focus on the meaning of the phrase, not just how many phrases we can list. And what that means to me, guys, whenever I hear those three things, what it means is your actions impact your results. And more than that, your actions impact your success. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an example, and I need y'all to bear with me just real quick. Let's think about how magnets work, guys. When you first get a magnet, if it's a decent magnet, it's probably fairly strong. It'll stick to just about anything that's the right material. And in the correct application, that magnet is going to be something that's very useful. For example, you find magnets in workshops, welding shops, in compasses, in medical processes. I know there's a lot of those out there. And even in an application just as simple as holding your shopping list to the refrigerator door, guys. And while they're extremely useful in these applications, it's because of the pull or the attraction it has to that object that it's sticking to. Now, guys, we also know that magnets can be very destructive. Have you ever seen what a magnet can do to electronics when a strong one gets way too close to a computer or a laptop or anything like that we use on a daily basis? You start to see some stuff go on with the screen. You start to see it act a little bit funny. And if it's there for too long, you end up with a catastrophic amount of damage that cannot be reversed usually. So what we know from that, guys, is magnets can be serving in a positive way and they can be very negative. And it's what the object is that it's pulling towards. And it's very important for you to remember that. Now, guys, you're probably asking yourself, why are we talking about magnets on a personal development podcast right now? And if you are, guys, I'll go ahead and give that answer away to you now. Have you ever felt yourself pulled towards something in life? Whether it's good or bad, I would wager that the answer to that question is yes. Maybe if it's something good you've been pulled towards, it's being pulled towards a significant other that you've been able to start a beautiful family with or live a fun life with. Maybe it's being pulled towards a career or starting your own business, and that decision to go down that path has changed your life forever in a positive way. Now, guys, maybe it's something such as being pulled towards stepping away from a situation that wound up being very dangerous or could have been very detrimental to you or a loved one. It could have caused you to get hurt or killed or just end up in a very negative place. And guys, those are all great examples of the positive pulls that we might have felt in our lives. But there's also some bad ones that I'll throw out as an example as well. Maybe one of the bad pulls or negative pulls in your life was making a decision that caused you to break the trust of someone who was very important to you in your life. Maybe that negative pull was abusing or choosing to abuse alcohol or drugs or maybe even something like pornography, and it caused you to end up in a bad place in your life. Maybe another example would be having a negative pull of finding yourself actually making a financial decision that ended up being way worse or causing you to spend much more money than you initially thought you were going to. And guys, if any of those different things hit home, or if you thought any of those things, or if you thought about any other things in your life that have pulled you in one direction or the other, whether it be positive or negative, then you've experienced this magnetic pull of life that I'm talking about. And with that, I wanted to take a moment and I wanted to steal a way of presenting that the pastor at our church has been doing here lately. And I wanted to present all of this wrapped up with a pretty bow on it and talk about the big idea. So what is the big idea of this podcast? The big idea of this podcast, guys, is you can utilize the knowledge of your magnetic field in your life to help you achieve your goals and to avoid making bad decisions. Now, another saying, guys, that we've brought up time and time again is that if you hang out with 5 low achievers, then you'll be the 6th low achiever. If you hang out with 5 high achievers, you'll be the 6th high achiever. And guys, I bring up that quote because of the example of the relationship and the example of attraction that talks about. And I want you to know that that attraction works internally as well. The thoughts that you let hang around inside your head and the things that you think on a daily basis begin to bring themselves to the surface. They begin to manifest themselves in your life. And it's not just your thoughts, guys. It's the things that come out of our mouths. It's the words that we use on a daily basis, whether we're talking to ourselves or whether we're talking to others. If it's a negative thing, if it's self-talk that's self-deprecating, then those things are also going to rise to the surface. They're also going to manifest themselves in our lives. And if you don't believe me, I'll put it into a form of an example for you that might be a little bit familiar. How many of us have tried at some point in our lives to get in shape or to start exercising and absolutely failed miserably? I know probably most of us who are listening to this podcast or sitting here talking on the podcast have probably done this at some point in their lives. And guys, yes, I included myself in that because although now, if you're watching on YouTube, you see the shelf with all the medals and buckles from marathons, ultra marathons, whatever on it, it wasn't always like this. Not at all. I used to be the world's worst about talking myself out of being able to achieve the physique, to achieve the physical health that I wanted to achieve. And the way I would do that, guys, is I would physically be trying to go for a run. I would be on that run in every sense besides mentally. Mentally, I would be focused on something completely different. I would be wishing I was at the house relaxing. I would be thinking about how I'm going to have this huge and unhealthy meal after this workout because I earned it. Or, guys, I was planning on what kind of beer I was going to drink whenever I got back to the house and I was done working out and showered and everything and relaxing. And those were all the main focus behind what I was doing. I failed to stay present and focused on the running or the working out or whatever I was doing at the time. And I completely removed myself from where I physically was. And because of that, guys, working out and getting healthier and having the lifestyle that I wanted physically was never something that was pulled towards me. Instead, those other things that I was focused on, the food, the beer, the being lazy and sitting around the house, those were the things that were drawn to me. And it continued to be an issue over and over and manifests itself over and over within my life. And guys, on the same note, whenever I finally got serious about fitness and I finally decided to get control of my health and to stay focused on that, that's when things started to get pulled in and attracted into my life on the other sense. I started thinking about how I was doing in comparison to how I was doing last week whenever I went on the runs, and I focused on beating myself and being competitive with myself, and that helped manifest it within my life. I started planning and focusing on making sure my routine was sustainable every time I went in the gym, and whenever I stayed present and focused on that routine, I was thinking about working out. I was thinking about the health changes I was going to make. Also with that, guys, I was looking up videos on how to work out, on different workouts I could do at home instead of going to the gym, different types of running workouts I could do. And I started following people who trained heavily and who coached other people on social media. And all of those things started to build that manifestation. It started to build that positivity and give more positive pull towards a healthier lifestyle. And guys, I also had to go ahead and look at some of the negative pulls in my life. I had to look at some of the people who were always telling me to come hang out and come eat unhealthy food and drink and all this stuff and to skip working out to come chill out with them. And I had to remove those things in my life as well. Now, don't get me wrong, those were a huge source of a pull. I wanted to go do that at times, but I knew that if I acted on that magnetic pull, it wouldn't serve me and it wouldn't help me move towards my goals. But guys, that's what you have to do in life. You have to figure out where this magnetic pull is pulling you towards. And you have to understand that not all of those things are good and not all of those things are bad. And you've got to learn to navigate that field for yourself. And that's not just the one area it's going to happen in, guys. It's not going to just be in fitness. That's my personal example. That was an easy one to pull from for me. But it happens all over, guys. It happens in the forms of finance. Like I talked about earlier, making a bad decision that might have cost you more than you thought. Sometimes we decide that we're going to get something because we feel like we've worked really hard and that we've earned it. And we imagine ourselves being able to have that boat or that new set of golf clubs or that gun or that truck or whatever it is. And the more we think about it, the more we're pulled towards it. And maybe it's not a huge financial investment for us. Maybe we make enough money to do it. Maybe we can afford to make that decision and we've earned it and it's something that we can actually have in our lives and enjoy. That's something we have to gauge, guys. That's the magnetic pull you're going to have to learn to navigate. Because on the flip side of that, guys, it could be a decision that we start thinking about these things that we want in our lives. We start thinking about the appearance it's going to have for the other people in our lives that really don't matter when it comes down to it. And we act on that instead, and we start to deal with that negative pull in a negative way, which is allowing ourselves to be drawn towards it and allowing ourselves to move in that direction. Now, guys, these magnetic pulls can also be within our careers. We can get so drawn to our careers and being successful and climbing that ladder that we leave other things in the dust. We can leave our personal lives in the dust. We leave our hobbies in the dust, our families, and all those things that matter. And on the flip side of the coin with that, guys, we can have such a big pull towards our families and towards living the life that we want to live that we stop focusing on the things that serve us, like the careers, and allow us to have that free time and allow us to have the money to go out and enjoy our time with our family and with our friends. So it's definitely a big balancing act, and you're going to have to learn how to navigate it. But guys, we could sit here all night long and run through those examples because there's a million and one of them. But I think it really comes down to the basics, guys. So like I said, we need to move to the most important part of this conversation, guys, and knowing that we are in charge of navigating the system, knowing that we are in charge of making these decisions is the most important part. Guys, we have the opportunity every single day to choose what we spend our time on. I know there's certain constraints that keep us within certain boundaries, like work, like schedules, like kids, like family. I understand that, guys, but more than that, we have the opportunity to decide which pools we act upon and which ones we ignore. And guys, that's a lot of power. That's a ton of responsibility. So we really have to be careful what we consume on all fronts, guys, whether that's physically, whether that's mentally, or spiritually. Because what we consume will become what's important to us. Now, I'm going to repeat that one time. What we consume will become what's important to us. It will exist in our subconscious self, and we'll find ourselves gravitating towards that all the time without even realizing it, guys. And if you don't believe that from me, make sure you take it from two guys that are a lot smarter than me, and that's Dr. Andrew Huberman, who has Huberman Labs, the podcast, puts out some great information, and Ed Mylett, who is a great guru in the personal development space, huge coach on mindset, finance, all those things. Make sure you look those guys up. But Dr. Huberman describes what is called a Reticular Activating System, or a RAS. And what that is, guys, is just simplified. It's a group of components within your brain that, due to chemical responses in your brain, they cause you to be drawn towards certain things in life. Now, where Ed Mylett comes in is he simplifies that to giving an example of this. Say you see a brand new Bronco and you really, really like it. And you find yourself really, really wanting that brand new Bronco. And next thing you know, guys, you're seeing Broncos all over the city. You're seeing them more and more every time you go out. There's red ones, there's green ones, there's blue ones. And you just can't help it, guys. You want it. And you love that car, and you see it everywhere you go. Now, the trick is there's no more cars out there than when you first decided that you liked that car. The only thing that's happening is you're realizing that your subconscious self is looking for those vehicles because they know you like them. You're getting a drop of dopamine whenever you're seeing that vehicle because you enjoy it. So your brain is actively looking for them, and you notice them more often, even though you're not actively hunting them down. And this example is about cars, but the truth is it's about a lot more than cars whenever you really break it down, guys, because we do this with everything in our lives. We do this with what we bring joy into our lives, or what we allow to bring joy into our lives. If we find ourselves focused on the sexualization of society today with social media and all the half-naked girls and half-naked guys and all that stuff, and you focus on that, you're going to bring that into your life, probably in a negative way. If you focus on the alcohol and the getting drunk and going and partying with friends, you're probably going to manifest that into your life in a negative way. It's going to be focused on within your subconscious through this RAS, just like we talked about. But guys, it can also work in a positive way. And that's where we've really got to stop, and we've really got to sit down and try to train this. Because if we use our RAS to focus on what is positive in our lives, if we focus on getting the right amount of sleep at night, if we focus on reading the right stuff and bringing the right information into our lives, if we focus on working out properly and learning how to work out and always having that on the forefront of our minds, that's going to be something that is within our subconscious, and we're going to get that drop of dopamine from that, and we're going to be drawn towards that. We're going to feel that magnetic pull, bringing us into a spot that's going to build positivity rather than tearing us down with negativity. So, guys, good and bad, the RAS, the Reticular Activating System, is definitely there, and it ties directly into this field of magnetic pull. It ties into the fact that if we're thinking about something, if we're focusing on something, if we're getting joy from something, it is going to start to manifest itself into our lives. So we really need to be careful on what we consume. And guys, I know I've thrown a lot of information at y'all today, and I know there's all these different pulls that we're going to experience in life on a daily basis. We're going to get pulled in different directions, and we've got to really sit down and we've got to navigate, and we've got to focus on what is going to help us accomplish our goals. What's going to help us achieve the things that we want to achieve? What pulls should we find ourselves moving towards and allow ourselves to move towards, because they will actually serve us? And guys, this is going to be something that's really tough. There's going to be days that we find ourselves being pulled towards the wrong things, and we've got to stop and we have to course correct. But no matter what, guys, you have to always remember that you're in control of the pulls. You don't need to be controlled by what society tries to put in your face, what the people who don't have the best in mind for you are trying to put into your face. You're the one navigating the field. You get to choose which pulls you act on. You have the power, guys. So go out there, make the best decisions, and make sure you're navigating the magnetic field the proper way for you. Now, guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Next in Line podcast. It's always a pleasure to get here and be able to just sit down in the studio and throw some words at you and throw some good lessons I hope that you're getting some value out of. Guys, if you are getting value out of them, make sure you're sharing the show with like-minded people. Make sure you're following us on social media, and always be prepared for whatever is next in line.